Hello, and welcome to this latest episode of the Miramichi Historical Linkages podcast. I'm Sean McCarthy, joined by Sarah Ward and by our special guest, Miigam'agan, from Eskenovitich, a clan mother, an advocate involved with the Urban Aboriginal Knowledge Network at UNB and the Nullan residents at St. Thomas University. Miigam'agan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. We're really excited to speak with you. What we've done here with this podcast over the last number of episodes is talk to folks from Miramichi who have gone out and, meet connections and who know about how Miramichi has influenced other parts of the province, the country, the world, and how the world has also influenced us as well. So we know that you've done a great many things, and I'd be interested, like I say, and I'm sure many of our listeners and our viewers too would be interested in hearing your story.
Mm-hmm. That's nice to know, and I'm glad to share.
Great altogether. In kind of preparing for this, I read an article that was done by the St. Thomas Student Newspaper at the time when you were brought on as elder in residence. And it said in that article that you got your start in advocacy in grade 7. And so I'd be interested, maybe would you be able to share that story with us?
Sure. So I want to first acknowledge in my mother tongue the gratitude of today and why it's so important that we do that, and it's part of our worldview and our history. So, Chigisuk, Miwedem Giskuk, Dandeligan Muyak Mimajuahan, Dandelian Quawiak, Dandeligan Muyak Mogignori, Nestuodi, Akiskuk, Edawachtamai, Migudermanenda, Wajuksit Hamodina, Wajuksit Hamodia, Achtebiganadnen, Unaharden, and Glokoahan Mina, Mauluguruch Dimk, Abajunaharden, Mimajuahan, Abajunaharden, and Nuegadio. Dan de lochte bene kungi geminach, dan de li anquaya duchtim cup, dan de li anqua de midip kidnu mahamigyo, dan de set me majuahan, sit hamon kijiru. So, kelok dan giskuk, Sarah Hulavin, dan de li bibanimin, Shan gagi, dan de li makobutik, So, chitnige Dubai, Tagoegis Ganama Siap. I Gungi Giminake Ginamu Banek. Niemedlich to upsee Gegenu Bamien Sithamu. Regularly. So, in my mother tongue, I offered gratitude to the life source, to life creation of all creations, Thanksgiving, and for the gift of our lives and a gift of relations among all living creatures and plant world, and all that had given their life to sustain us, and that we uphold our sacred responsibilities to our relations. When I talk about our relations, I'm speaking much more broader than the human relationships, but the original teachers of our ancestors, we're all part of that great circle, that sacred life on our sacred Mother Earth. So we regard all life on her as our original teachers, which is the tree, the plant world, the animal world, the water world, the sky world, and so much more. So, and we thank, and then offering thanksgiving to the source of life and to all our ancestors for providing that guidance all through all our lives, and for uh, upholding their responsibility, which is now we're the beneficiaries of it. It's only been 500 years that we all couldn't even imagine that the waterways were just flourishing with life, that in the forest world, life was just flourishing, and in the plant world and in the sky world. So this is the gift that's been gifted to all of us by the ancestors that upheld those original sacred teachings. So that is always first and foremost in any given situation when you see powwows or when you see events going on and indigenous folks come up and offer, like, and this is what the spirit of our opening remarks is, to ground ourselves to the land that we are on, and to remind us of all that is around us is the reason why we're still here enjoying the life experience, because someone had to give their life for us. And so those are very important treaty relationships that we have had, our original ones we've had and made with all life on our sacred Mother Earth. And so as all humanity of the world. So my opening for this conversation. Thank you for your patience.
Oh no, I thank you, and I apologize for not for forgetting that in the moment and maybe kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. And I thank you for your patience and your kindness in reminding me of that. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So you were asking a question?
Yeah. Uh, so when I was kind of preparing for this talk, uh, I read an article. I think it was from 2012.
Yes.
Uh, from St. Thomas, and talked again about the your background, and again how you kind of started your advocacy when you were in grade school.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so I guess maybe that's a that's a nice kind of stepping off point to maybe kind of talking about your your work from that time onward.
Oh, sure. Yes, I have forgotten about that, and I was reminded uh, in when I was 19 years old by a cousin whose name is Fenton Somerville. When the young people of that time, when I turned of age to be able to vote in the Indian Act elections, I was voted in as a counselor under that regime. And so my cousin Fenton reminded me that he said that he supported me, and that many have about at that age. And I think it was understood that we were majority voters at that time when I became of age as well. So I was invited to run by the current chief and council to bring on the younger voters. And so I came in, and Fenton came over and reminded me, and he said, of course you would be running for office. He said, you've always stood for the best interests of our community and best, and justice for all. And he reflected back when we were in grade 7. I was in grade 7. He was in grade 6 with my brother Leo. And so there was a lot of, we were teenagers, coming into adolescent years, and we were pretty rambunctious and exerting our own rights and the conversations at the home front and so on. And the stories, it was, so we needed to do something. And the mistreatment actually on the students by certain teachers, those the violations that was happening at that time in our school in Burn Church. And so I suggested that maybe we need to, when that teacher comes in, maybe we all need to just get up and walk out. And so, and they'll ask us because no one was asking us and they weren't listening to us, and with the complaints that we were bringing forth. So sure enough, when that happened, when the teacher came in and all eyes were on me, and so I had to get up and once I get up, handful of students got up with me, and we walked out, and some eventually trickled on because the environment and was questionable, and people were the students were accustomed to the hostile environment, so. Yeah, and it was a scary step to do, and we did it. And of course, at the end, I was, what's that? When I was, when they found out that I was the first one to get up to start the march walkout, I was suspended, and so. Then we went to that next level. We were going to not go to school. Some was able to go through with it, but that's how it started. Grade 7. Yeah. We had a really wonderful homeroom teacher, but it was the subjects that some of the teachers were different, and we just it was overwhelming to endure a couple of the teachers. So that's.
Was this
my first
turn Indian day school?
Yes.
So was it just like Indian day school?
Yeah, and yes, it was. Yes. There's a whole series of stuff before when an oppressed person stands up, you can rest assured they're at the end of their rope, and this was our end of our rope too. We had to do something because there was this is our conversations at the time. There's our younger brothers, sisters who are in grade 6, 5, 4, and so they were dealing with the similar stuff at the time too. So yeah, that was my first brave act.
Yes.
Yeah.
And prior to that, a lot of the children were called the 60 scoop. So a lot of us got caught in that scoop, and we were caught in that too, and put in placement for 2 years. And it's very interesting because for us, we were really fortunate that we didn't get locked away from our locked indoor systems. That program, 60 School program, we were located and placed in a very rural, small home of 4 adults living in this 3-bedroom little bungalow, and we were put there. My sisters and I, 4 of us. And so what happened was one of the trappers in the community decided to take another route. Usually he could have gone through a shortcut to his traps, this going up from Burn Church to Tabas Tack, and he decided, his name is Amos Joe, and he decided to take the long way And when he did that, he seen this little 3 little Indian girls playing out on the way in the back at the house in the field. And so he stopped until he was noticed. And so my 3 sisters, younger sisters, ran over to go see, thinking that he was, here's this thin, dark person, a man, standing at the driveway. Of course, it has to be our father. So they ran to him until they, so he asked them who they were, and so who your mother is, and they said who my mom was. And so they came running back to me to tell me that Daddy's out there. And it was like we were kind of like little farm animals, that we were treated the same way as the farm animals and cats. So we would be housed. We have breakfast. We have to go out. This is for the summer, and stay out till noon, and then be fed and go back out again, all along with the other critters of the house. And so, and then come in for supper, have supper, and go to get ready, wash up and everything, and go upstairs to bed. And so we were like that, and it didn't matter what kind of weather. So I was in the back of standing up against the back of the woodshed, up against a tar paper covering to keep myself warm again towards the sun. And when my sisters ran around to go and tell me Daddy's out there, I started walking out there, and I recognized he was Native man for sure, and someone from our community and family, which is one and the same. So I found out he wasn't my father, but he did wanted to know who we all were, and I confirmed with what was shared, that who my father was and my mother. And so he kept going, and it was about a month or 2 later, probably because they have to walk. It's 20 minutes drive. And so walking, I had to go check his trap. So he probably was there for a couple of weeks, and then make his way back to the community. And at that time, a car arrived about a month after, and it was my mother, and she came to steal us back, and took off with us. And it was already tragic, that we were pulled away from my grandfather. We were at our grandfather's visiting, and my mom was in Miramichi. Her sister was married to a man from Miramichi. So she was in Miramichi, and then when she learned that we were apprehended by child Indian agents, that when she came back, she had no knowledge of where we were, because they wouldn't give that information when children were taken. So it was sheer luck that man came through, and Amos seen us, and then gave that information to my mother, and then she came for us. It was a horrific experience. A few days after, because it was like there was a major uprise because of the way we were, the RCMP and the church and the agency that came to get us early in the morning, totally ripped all the children out of the bed from my mom. I managed to crawl out the window upstairs and over the porch roof, and then jumped off there, and I was 10 years old, and I ran into the woods, and I just hid in the woods. They had to go find me. There was no way I was going back there, but my 3 sisters went back, and yeah, so that was while we were there. I had to stop from the broom beating that my sisters were getting, and to stand up against that was it really courageous for a little girl to do to adults, especially to white adults, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't going to share this story. How things come forward. I guess it was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been a strong advocate in language now in my older years, and at first culture. The very first time I heard about our culture, because I grew up believing in what was written about us in the mainstream education and the history books, and I didn't read the history books. It was what was told to me by our older students or older cousins, and what was being taught, and of course cartoons and the portrayal. But my first experience in our history and culture was by a wonderful elder by the name of Newell Knockwood. He's no longer alive, and at the Cody Institute in St. FX in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. And I went there, and he came in, and it was a all indigenous training program, training us, of course, to be alcohol and drug counselors. So we were being all groomed to deal with the problem at hand, which is really the it's not a cultural thing. It's a created environment that created system that created that situation. So I was my first time. I was 19 years old. I had experience. He did a pipe ceremony, and he spoke to us in the language, and said that we are not what we've been led to believe. So that we have our own way of communicating with our ancestors to the spirit world. We have our own way of worship. We always have, our ancestors always have had. We have a way of knowing we know our homeland, what they would understand as geography. We know about our ancestry, our stories. This is history, and we know about mathematics much more in an expansive way. And he said that this is math that they're teaching us, but we know much more than that. What our language is teaching us. And I couldn't believe I had a spiritual awakening, and that turned my life around, you know, and that's been my first building block towards what I wanted to help recreate, or return to our communities. And that was our cultural worldview, our history, and the truth of who we are as a people, and so on. So that's been my life's work, and spirituality. And then with in regards to the language, what the question, the research was, why was our languages outlawed? You know, and so, you know, this is the in the timeline how our languages was outlawed by the ones who arrived on our shores. This is about colonization in action. So it was displacing women, our grandparents, and then removing children, and then outlawing people. You know, we were forbidden to speak in our mother tongue. And then what was happening was the missionaries and the scholars of that time went and recorded our language, and they did not want to hear from the women, because the thinking that arrived on our shore did not regard women. Women did not have a voice, or, you know, they were cattle to the ones that arrived on our shores. Cattle had more worth than the women, and women were only looked at as reproductive entities, or they were even one. There was even a question if they had souls or if they were spirits, or I mean, if they had spirits, based on the timeline. So, okay, 5 more minutes. So, so what happened is that our languages were recorded, documented, sterilized. When I say sterilized, they were the spirit and the women were removed from that, the language. So what was given back by way of dictionaries was colonial view, colonial definitions, and Christian definitions. So therefore, our sacred words became demonized. The women, the way of understanding women and women's roles were discredited, devalued, and so on. So in my upbringing, we still had some, the language is multidimensional. It's really, there's no derogatory words in our languages, even though we've been led to believe by way of the dictionary that we were already warring tribes. And because we have words like Madnakewinu and Samaginis, meaning the soldier and the warrior. But that's not our definition. So in the reclamation of our language and rematriating the language, we're now going deeper into the truth of our ancestors, our worldview, and of course, how could the ones who arrived, who were documenting this, could comprehend what our language was truly saying? I think now Western science, the out-of-the-box thinkers who are working with indigenous people across the lands from North, Central, and South America are getting it, because now we have new words, Western words, science words like epigenetics, and all of that that's come now. There's a true understanding of what those ancient words and what our words are, language is about, because now they're making those kind of connections. Anyway, I had a 5 minutes notice, so, but I just want to share that, because I think time is of so importance for humanity, for us to re-look at our ancient languages. It's not just indigenous in the Western Hemisphere, it's global. The ancestral languages are our key to raising our awareness and of our trueness of as human beings. So all the ancient cultures of the world we all come from the same source. We all come from our sacred Mother Earth, and all the life and all of these ancient systems had something. And so that's what I feel, that when we need to be returning to replenish and gift our future 7 generations what our ancestors gave us, plentiful abundance of love and life. I guess that's all in one breath. Shared it all in one breath. I can come up for air now. Thank you.
I can truly relate to what you're saying, because I've been even looking at my language, right? And I'm looking at some of the biblical scripts and some of the hymn songs, and I look at the stories of my ancestors and my grandparents and stuff, the story they talk about. They tell us that the life we're living now is like paradise. It's heaven. Enjoy it. Embrace it. Life is good, And then you look at the biblical script that they translated into our language. It is so sad and depressing. It's almost like some of the hymn songs I that are translated. I listen to it, and I'm thinking, like, we have to suffer in order to find heaven. Why can't we just embrace life now and be happy and be appreciative of what we have? But I can relate to what you're saying, like, when it comes to our language, the importance of our language and how it translates to our outlook of life every day
Mm-hmm.
and how we embrace,
Yes.
certain changes in our life. Yeah. So I really
Yes.
appreciate your message.
And thank you, Sarah, for inviting me and everyone here.
We can talk. So I met Miigam'agan. She was one of the first person I met after moving here, and it's kind of like we're family from a different parents, but we're family.
Yes.
We're sisters. so we
Mm-hmm.
connect with a lot of sisters on the Miramichi. So we kind of like when we want to debrief, we get together and we say what we want to say, and we're comfortable to say it and to leave it there.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm. Thank you. I was very happy to join, when you connected with me, Sarah. And these are the our these, and I think humanity. But I can only speak with from our indigenous way of being, our protocols, and this is also, as you described, this is our culture is founded on relations, and so and upholding relations. Materialism is not the focus, but relationships, and celebrating life and friendships. So
Yeah.
and peace, because that's the key. Understanding peace is, and we don't have, our language is not noun based, so it's more verb based.
Yeah.
So it's all about behavior and action and all of that, rather than it's a living life, it's a living culture, rather a noun based. Because if it's a noun based, then things are stagnant. Once it's written, it's locked in, and it's one person's perspective. But the cultural languages is a collective perspective, and it's beyond.
It's animated.
Yes, and it's expanding not just to humanity, but our language and our relationship and communication with the non-human world, our relationship to the trees, and beyond the perimeters of this dimensional life, but extended to the life, the non-physical life that we cannot see. Our ancestors, by way, and now, like the languages is teaching us that there is a communion, constant communion with the unseen world, based on the language as we rematriate it. That it's so multidimensional, and it's just so expansive beyond what our non-native relatives or friends think. So that was contained when our languages were outlawed, because our languages hold our worldview, our culture, and our identity, and so we were severed from the origin. That's how people are displaced and disconnected from our relationship to the trees, and so on. So living in harmony with all life. So you don't destroy family, because you need to increase your livelihood, or expand a material wealth, and so those relationships, we still have kinship names and terms when we talk about spruce, cedar, beaver. These are all kinship family names in our language. So that's what our ancient languages all hold. It's not just, it's for everyone, like from the European to, the Asian, the Arab, the Africa, indigenous nations of the world. It's a big recommendation for, and I suggest and recommend folks to really research your heritages, because we all have different heritages. mine isn't just Miigama, so it's a wonderful gift to path to create for our younger generations. They will design and co-create a world that we all dreamt about and our ancestors dreamt about for us. So I think Andrew has given me a final signal, so I think I'll end myself here. I'll stop right here.
I think it's a
Thank you
wonderful
very
message.
much, Miigam'agan, for absolutely, 100%, for the work that you're doing, and again for the inspiration that you provide to Indigenous and non-Indigenous people alike, and for your challenge to all of us to reconnect in meaningful ways. So these are great lessons to carry forward, and we thank you again for sharing them with us today and for joining us and taking some time.
Okay, thank you. Namulta Sarah.
Yeah. Lalin.
Lalin.